closer to that. We had a couple of things we wanted to address with this roster. One was just getting older and more experienced. So that was probably priority number one. So we addressed that need. We also wanted to be more skilled as a general rule. I think we've addressed that as well. And then so, from now till perpetuity, we'll continually be trying to upgrade talent year after year after year. Everyone's trying to do that. But I think in terms of what I like to do offensively, we're much better suited with this group from a skill standpoint to do some of those things.
Lamont, does it feel like a different camp this year than a year ago?
It is a different camp, and it certainly feels like a different camp for a lot of reasons. One, I think first and foremost is just an older group. They get things, they pick up on things quicker. They find my jokes a little funnier, or they know how to pretend that they're funny, one or the other. But drastically different at this point than 1 year ago, and in large part too because not only are we older, but we were able to go on the foreign tour this summer. We played 2 games down in the Bahamas, and so that always puts you ahead of the curve in terms of the 10 practices that the NCAA affords you during that time. So much different camp.
Lamont, I saw Zach Davis kind of standing off the side. Is he okay?
He is okay. Yeah, he's got something that he's dealing with right now in terms of a physical ailment that prohibited him from practicing today. But he'll be back much sooner than later.
Lamont, when you're mentioning so many new players, how do you speed up the team bonding process?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I think some of that is just some of it's the guys themselves and the character of the guys, and it's hard to force that. One of the things that helps it is, again, I mentioned it already, we went down to the Bahamas on one of those trips, and you play 2 games down there, and the guys think that the most important thing is how the games go, and the coaches know there are 2 things that are really important. One, that nobody gets hurt. 2, that everyone plays, and then 3, that they all have some experiences down there that help them get closer as a group. And I think we knocked it out of the park in all 3 of those different areas.
How did you see that trip, the trip to the Bahamas? How did you see that help with building that foundation and enhancing that culture?
Yeah, they spent time. This is probably the best thing I've done. I've never done this before. I've been a part of a few of these trips. And for the first time ever, we had one day that they didn't have to be around us at all. We didn't even have a team meal. We had nothing that they had to be at. And I think that was probably the day that they spent the most time together, was that day, as it turns out. And so, again, you try to put them in some environments where they're going to grow and just get closer to each other and bond. And so they were able to do that over the trip. But I thought that was a really, really important trip for us. And just because of the guys we have, we got some good personalities, some funny guys, and just a good group. It didn't take a lot of effort for them to, I think they naturally just sort of gravitated towards one another.
Lamont, how do you kind of balance the line of doing something different that maybe didn't work in year 1 or didn't work as well as you thought versus kind of staying the course and having that be part of your process?
Well, I'm a stay the course type of guy for the most part. We made some changes last year that I'm also not so hard-headed that I'm going to try to force a square peg into a round hole. So we made some adjustments midstream last year that I think really helped us from an offensive standpoint, and that was largely due to our personnel and what their strengths and weaknesses were. But we still had some things on both sides of the ball that I didn't compromise on. Those things will still be around this year. I think we'll just probably expand some things from an offensive standpoint. I think we made 16 threes in the first game down in the Bahamas and 18 threes in the second game. So, when you can generate 54 points off of just the 3-point line, that allows you some great opportunities to score the ball and open the floor and do some different things. So I'm excited about this team, excited about the group, excited about what they have an opportunity to get accomplished from a basketball standpoint.
Lamont, you have quite a few players that have experience playing in the SEC. How beneficial is that going to be for you as you continue to adjust to this conference and adjust to everything that's going on, knowing that you've got players that have played on other teams you've played before already?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. We have so much more experience in so many ways. We have more experience relative to just me. We have more guys on our team that have heard my voice for a whole year and know what terminology is. We have more experience just overall in playing college games, and we have more experience with guys that have played in this league. So more guys that have contributed, that understand the speed and the pace of this league, the things that teams are trying to do in this league, the personnel that will still be back in this league. So I think that familiarity, even when you bring in a guy like Miles Studi, who's obviously been in this league for multiple years as well. So I think that bodes well for us in terms of just there won't be shock in seeing and playing on the road or seeing a specific venue or a crowd, or none of it will be new to the vast majority of our team. So that's a tremendous help.
What are expectations for you this year?
Out of
Michi?
Michi, growth. I think that would be a huge part of it, is growth in some basketball ways, and more importantly in some non-basketball ways. I think the more he continues to grow and be comfortable with himself in some non-basketball ways, it shows up on the court for him. He's been fantastic in the preseason and in the summer so far. The growth has been just so obvious in all different ways. In his personality, he's just so much more comfortable. You have a guy, and a lot of these guys find themselves in this situation. You have a guy that comes in and he's trying to prove that Chris Holtman got it wrong, right? I mean, Chris is a really good coach, but when you come from one school to another school and it didn't go the way that you wanted to, your natural instinct is to do that, and you're constantly trying to prove something. And I think he's just out of that mode in terms of trying to prove something, particularly to me and our staff. He's just trying to flourish, and it's happening, and he's growing as a player, and he's growing as an individual. And it's honestly, they pay me to do a lot of different things, but that's the part of it that's the most enjoyable for me, is to watch guys flourish and grow as individuals.
What have you seen out of some of the freshmen, Arden and Colin in particular?
I love our young group. We got a really, really talented and good young group, and I think having them in the program and growing and learning terminology and how we do things and what the expectations of how hard you play and what kind of teammate you're going to be, those things are important. And so those guys will be on the ground floor of that. But they've been great. Two local guys that are very thankful and appreciative to be here. Their families are as well. But they both have a really good foundation. They both were taught a lot at the high school level, and so they came in here, I think, ahead of the game, not only physically, but just in terms of their knowledge of the game. So really excited about them, as well as our other freshmen. Morris comes in from Finland, and he's a guy that, I don't know what he weighed when he got here, but it wasn't near as much as he does now. He's gotten a lot stronger, and but he's got another guy that just has a great feel for the game. And then Austin Hero also is another guy that came in that we recruited, and I'm just looking forward to that whole group. It's a good young group. It's a great group to have behind this group of veterans that we have.
Will Morris play or redshirt?
I don't know. That's a good question. So here's where I stand normally on playing versus redshirting. I tell guys, I give them some input as we get closer to the first game, and then I let them make their own decision ultimately on what they want to do. But if they're not going to be a guy that I think I can get consistent minutes out of, I usually will recommend that they redshirt. I think his plan, to be quite honest with you, coming here was to redshirt just because he was, slight in his build, but he's so advanced as a basketball player that I think we're going to have a real conversation when it comes time to start playing games.
You spoke about experience for you and for the players from last season. What was your biggest takeaway as head coach from your first year here in South Carolina?
Just learning some of the things that teams like to do. I think it's team by team, so more importantly what coaches like to do, specific coaches, but then also there are some things that just play well in this league versus certainly the SoCon or even my time in the Big Ten. I mean, you probably aren't, while both of these two conferences tied for having the most teams in the NCAA tournament, they probably couldn't be any further apart in terms of style of play. And so just getting accustomed to what that looks like, and adjustments that you can make along the way, and then some things that you file for the following year so that we can work to attack some of those things in the preseason.
What are your expectations for wins and losses this year?
Lots of wins, not so many losses. Isn't that a great expectation? Yeah.
Is that realistic?
I think so. Yeah. I don't put a number on it ever. I mean, I've been around some teams that I knew were going to be really, really good, and I just have never put a number on it. I just don't think it really makes that much sense to do for anyone inside. And you're outside the program, sure, it's fun. But I'll tell you what I won't do. I would never cap what I think these guys are capable of doing. We got a lot of work to do, especially on the defensive end. But you know, we got a lot of guys that can put the ball in the basket and make a shot and spread the floor and create opportunities for each other. We're unselfish as an offensive group. That's a great place to start. We're experienced, we're older, we've seen a bunch of things. So it would be really hard for me to put a ceiling on what I think we can do. I stay cautiously optimistic, but I like our group a lot. I really like our group, and I think we got a chance to be pretty good if we can put it together on the defensive end.
It's obviously really early, but do you feel like this team has an identity yet? And if not, what do you hope that identity becomes as we get into the season?
Yeah, I don't think so yet. I hope that our identity is one where, and when we say identity, I guess it's if we ask some other teams or other coaches, well, what does that team do? I hope our identity is that we're connected as a defensive unit, that we're disciplined on the defensive side of the ball, that we're competitive. We're competitive-minded guys. I think that ultimately gets it done, even in the absence of talent in some areas. And you know, in this league, at any particular position or any particular game, there's going to be a deficit in talent. There's someone in this league, you know, the number 2 pick in the whole NBA draft last year came out of this league. So that's normal, but I think you can cover the ground and close the gap just with competitive spirit and a competitive attitude combined with toughness.
What is your message to Gamecock fans, and what should Gamecock fans expect from the team this year?
Well, my message is come out and see these guys play and support them and get to know them. I actually, before watching them play, try to get to know them. It's a great group. It's a really good group. I enjoy my time with them. I shared some of that at the end of practice, and that won't be the last time that I do that. I coach them pretty hard, so sometimes you forget to tell them stuff like that. But it's a really, 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 really good group. So get to know them. Come out and support them. And I don't know if I dare even say this in this climate. I mean, I use this proverbially, but I'll say don't bet against them. Somebody out there is going to take that the wrong way. But you know what I mean when I say that. It's a good group. They have the ability to get a lot of things done. We got to come together defensively. I can't stress that enough. We got to get better defensively. But if and when we do reach that point and we'll play relaxed and comfortable on the offensive end, I don't doubt what the capability of this team is in terms of putting the ball in the basket.
Talked a lot about defense. What do you want to see more from this group as you get closer to the opener, defensively speaking?
Defensive competitiveness in a one-on-one scenario. I think that's a big part of it. You have to look the guy that's across from you in his face, and he has to believe that he's going to have a tough time scoring on you. And some guys have never, that's not been their role in their entire careers. And so trying to help develop that can be a challenge. And so we have to develop two guys. We have to develop someone to be our best defender, and then we have to develop our worst defender to where his defensive effort is at minimum acceptable. I think if you do both of those two things, I think everything else in the middle is okay. I think you'll be fine. If you have one guy that you can kind of be the litmus of how you're going to play that day defensively, and then as long as your worst defender that plays a lot, if your worst defender doesn't play, it doesn't matter, right? He's sitting next to me. But if your worst defender that plays a lot can be reasonable, then I think you got a chance.
With the extra practice time that you got in the summer preparing for the trip and the games you played down there, how much further along are you now in your preseason preparation?
Yeah, a lot. That's a good question. I mean, honestly, to put it in, to try to quantify it, we're probably 12, 13, 14 practices ahead, even though it was only 10 extra practices that we got. We crammed some stuff in just because we had to play games after the summer too. So I look at some old practice plans. This is how fun my life is. I look at old practice plans from 3 years ago, 2, 3, 4 years ago, and I know where we were at this point. And just in these years, you're way ahead in terms of what you have in. You spend a little bit more time on a couple different things, so it's great. I think also this group has the capacity to learn more and has a higher ceiling. So I've coached them different than I did last year's team, and I've shared that with our guys as well.
And you bring in the veterans. How much does recruiting, the portal, and everything change things? Having those guys, the veteran guys, you're able to bring in.
Yeah, I said this when I first got the job. I think you can do two things because of the portal. You can get older quicker, right? And you can also recruit to play your style of basketball quicker. Now, maybe they're not as talented or as athletic or whatever, ultimately, as you may be 3 or 4 years down the road. But I think you can recruit quicker to your system and your style of play. And so that's what we've done. And those were two areas that I really wanted to improve upon. And so the transfer portal has really changed that. I think you can change what the makeup of your team is pretty quickly. It doesn't mean you'll get there right away, but I think you can change what it looks like pretty quickly.
Lamont, there's a thing a lot of people know as Gamecock Jesus, Lamont.